Why wait to earn the degree you deserve? You have the experience, you have the knowledge. Now's the time to get the credit for the work you've done and earn the recognition you deserve by starting your comeback at Purdue Global. It's time to earn a degree you'll be proud of, a degree that employers will respect. It's never too late. Never too late to come back stronger and move forward in your career. Start your comeback today at purdueglobal.edu. Purdue's online university for working adults.
Hey, Diane, holiday shopping?
All done. Everyone's getting the new iPhone 15 from T-Mobile, and T-Mobile's covering the cost. Plus, I got 4 lines for $25 a line per month.
I gotta get to T-Mobile.
Get 4 iPhone 15s on us with eligible trade-in when you switch to T-Mobile.
Minimum of 4 lines for $25 per line per month with autopay discount using debit or bank account. $5 more per line without autopay, plus taxes and fees. Phone fee at 24 monthly bill credits for well-qualified customers. Contact us before canceling account to continue bill credits or credit stop and balance on required finance agreement due. $35 per line connection charge apply. See T-Mobile.com.
In the grocery store trenches, the big swindle is nigh, because the grocery stores price all their prices too high, and the grocery store aisles
go on forever.
Prediction when you'll find canned beets?
How about never?
Members only, the sign says you must have a card, but the sign up.
Why is it always so hard?
But over at Aldi, it's different, you know. We don't hike up our holiday prices. Heck no. Our don'ts mean high quality and savings. It's true. Everything we don't do is for you. It's an Aldi thing.
Check it out. This episode is brought to you by Bridge 9 Records, amazing record label, and their new release from H2O. It's their first new record in 7 years. It comes out on October 9th, and you can pre-order it at b9store.com/H2O. So do that, and then here's the rest of the show. Hello all. Hello you running on the treadmill over there. What about you driving in the car right there? Or how about you just simply walking around in a beautiful city on a beautiful day with my voice in your ears? Hello, I'm Ray Harkins. This is an episode of 100 Words or Less, the podcast. Thank you for joining us on this introspective journey into the great people who make up this independent music scene. So thank you. If you are listening to it for the first time, I appreciate it. If you are a longtime listener, I appreciate you. Appreciation being spread across all over the place. So, the guest this week is Mr. Tom Sheehan, the vocalist from a amazing band called Indecision. But first, let's get some other business pleasantries out of the way, and then we will. Then I'll set this episode up because it's an interesting story. The next episode, I'm actually very excited in talking about. It is a split podcast. So, you know, the concept of split 7 inches, that's basically what I'm trying to do with this next particular episode. So next episode, next week, will be with Tom Mullen from Washed Up Emo podcast. And I'm very excited to bring that to you. So tune in. It's a little bit different sort of content. It's more of a general discussion rather than a actual interview where we're asking each other questions. But it's really fun stuff. So I promise you will be engaged by it. And I will also release the news here that October is a themed month, and that theme is what I like to call the modern faces in hardcore. And I know that's kind of maybe a grandiose term for the month, but basically I wanted to focus on people who are really doing something awesome within the context of, more specifically, hardcore. Not so much independent music in general, but focusing in on hardcore. Because there's a lot of great stuff, and I know it's very easy for people such as myself who are older to look at hardcore and be like, it wasn't what it once was. It's so stupid. I hate that argument, and I think most people who pay attention to music and follow it relatively closely can see the amazing things that are coming from it. So I'm focusing on 4 separate people who are either running record labels, playing in bands, just doing the damn thing. So all October, people making a difference right here, right now in 2015. So anyways, I'm excited to bring that content to you as well. This discussion was interesting. I was in New York, probably a year and a half ago. It's been a long time. And I sat down with Tom. We had a great chat. It was very late at night at my friend Michael Duenas' apartment. Him and his wife were generous enough to let me hang out with a stranger in their house. Well, it was technically on their balcony. So we had a great discussion. Tom was super psyched. I was super psyched. We left it at that, said goodbye. I flew back to California, and then I lost the MP3 recorder. So I have a digital recorder that I travel around with, and sometimes when the opportunity strikes, I'm able to meet up with a person when I'm traveling for business or something else to be able to interview them for the show. Needless to say, I misplaced this digital recorder, so I felt like an absolute idiot. I hit up Tom. I was like, I'm so sorry. I lost the interview. I'm stupid. And he was like, don't worry about it. Let's do it again. So him and I traded a few texts over the next couple months being like, can you do this time? He's like, no, I can't. And so anyways, because I'm like, dude, I just lost like a $200 piece of equipment, and that is not like me. Generally speaking, I take inventory because I'm an only child. So I know where everything's at. My toys. I know where all my toys are. Fast forward to maybe, 2 months or so ago. And I am looking or packing for another trip that I was going to take. And then I open up a pouch that I haven't seen in a long time. Guess what I found? You can see it right here. My portable digital recorder. And I was like, oh my gosh, I found it. That's awesome. Let's see if this still works. And of course it worked because, it was just running on batteries, and that's not a big deal. It wasn't like running on tape or anything like that. So needless to say, the conversation I have with Tom, it's not dated because obviously I wasn't asking him about like, whoa, what are you doing on, November of 2014 or whenever we had this discussion. But the audio quality is a little bit different because we are recording it, literally outside in New York City. So you're going to be hearing a lot of background noise. The discussion cuts through. The conversation is top notch. And I just wanted to set it up for you. So basically, if you were listening to this and you're like, oh, this is not like the most recent episodes that you've done, there's a reason it's not like that. So if you are bummed on the audio quality of this particular episode, I'm horribly sorry. But I would listen to it personally and not find any huge differences to be like, oh, I can't listen to this. This is terrible. So anyways, Tom is a vocalist for Indecision, and Indecision is an incredibly influential band to me, and I know a lot of other people in the context of the metallic hardcore world. He also sang for Most Precious Blood as well for a record, and he's just been doing the damn thing for a long time. So Indecision just recently put out a documentary that I have yet to see, but I am very excited to receive my copy at some point in the near future. So without further ado and preamble, I apologize. This has been a wordy introduction. Here's my discussion with Tom, and I will talk to you after the show ends.
Yeah. Dude went on, like, you would literally ask one question and he'd go on for 15 minutes.
Totally.
And same with Elgin and everybody. I mean, it's so,
Yeah, it's a journey, and it's one of those things where it's like I try to set up a framework, and then wherever we go is
right. But there's like an underlying theme. I've noticed, like family or and that sort of thing.
Exactly. Because ultimately, it's like I want to arrive at why a person still is either connected or why they feel the need to still be creative in some capacity.
Right. And it's funny, all the ones that I've listened to, I was like, oh, that's totally what I would say. Oh, I would totally, like literally, I was like, I've known James from Make Do It Men, fairly well. Like, he came to, like, a New Year's party, like, And I loved his band. Loved his band. But, like, listening to him, I'm like, holy shit, like, you are my long-lost brother from Connecticut. We had the same idea.
Right.
We went to Catholic school. Right. We hated everything. Right. Or, like, and then you listen to, like, even, like, Rob Moran.
Yeah.
Like, and you were like, what are you still involved for? And he was like, partially because I still love it, partially this, and partially like obligation. And I was like, that is completely.
Yeah, you're like, I get that.
Like, I totally. And I was like, what's the third thing he's gonna say? I'm like, obligation, but that sounds like so, like, it's almost like it sounds disheartening to have that kind of like dismissive almost. It's kind of like I feel obligated that I have to do it.
Of course,
but you kind of do.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, this took me all this way.
This thing's given me so much.
Right. Friends and people. I mean, people across the world, across the country, and you kind of feel like, I still kind of owe it something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, and make sure it's still going,
Right, yeah, that you can, because there always is this notion, especially in, like, independent music and culture in general, where it's like, it's very difficult to quote-unquote age gracefully.
Absolutely.
Because they're, like, if you're still playing in a band and you're quote-unquote old, and you're not good, like, that's when it's just like,
oh God,
like
that should have stayed in the garage. Or
totally,
that
every
sounded better in my
reunion.
head, yeah, of course. But then there's some that you see, you're like, holy shit, like, this
vibrant.
is why.
Yep.
Like, we got it, are we?
Yeah, like, Sick of It All is a prime example of a band that it's just like, people care less and less about them in the States, and that's a reality. Right. But they don't show any signs of being like, oh, like, we're gonna phone this one in.
Right. It's incredible. I mean, they're still the energy, the work ethic that they have. I mean, they're twice as old as most current bands.
Yep.
And they still go out there, and like I've never seen them and been like, "And I had an off night."
Yeah.
Ever.
No.
We've toured with them. I've seen them for 20 years on my own.
Right.
And it's never been like, oh.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know what? Pete wasn't feeling it tonight. Right. It's like those dudes are like straight ahead,
they're
like
machines.
no pun intended.
Yes.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Right.
You know, and like they, you know, Pete and Craig like work out, you know, to kind of train for this and stuff like who the hell, you know what I mean? Like, who else would do that?
They're at a different level of taking the band as seriously as possible in order to make sure that they remain relevant just from like their own standards, rather than like whatever anybody else, especially in the States, like they're quote unquote irrelevant in so many places. Like when they play in California, I mean it's 100 people, 150 people.
Which is unbelievable.
It's sad.
I mean, New York is still pretty great for them.
Totally.
But, I mean, like, I always have these arguments. I'm like, you know, like, because they kind of get, like, kind of upset.
Of course.
When these things happen. And I was like, well, I mean, I can totally understand.
Yep.
If you're a band and you're going on last, and literally every band that played before you that day is either directly or indirectly influenced by what you've done in your life.
They're the branch in your tree. Right.
And no one is like, you know, I'm going to see this band full of 22-year-olds. No, you know, no shame in that. But I'm not going to stay for these old guys at the end. I would be furious.
Yeah.
And I think, like, they still have, their records are still good. I think if they put out, like, a lot of the more recent records that they put out, if you put, like, Joe Schmo on that and Not Sick at All, people would be eating it up.
Oh, totally.
They would be the hype band.
This is vibrant, this is youthful,
Like,
this is...
it's heavy, it's, the lyrics are great, the vocals are amazing.
Yep.
But, you know, because it's like, well...
Yeah.
I stopped listening after, you know, Blood, Sweat, or, you know, whatever. Like, Built to Last. That was the last thing I even get.
Right.
You're missing out, because there's a lot of great stuff, you know, and I think a lot of bands, you know... Madball put out a record recently that was great.
Yeah.
I mean, 20-something years in, they're still great. Sheer Terror just put out a record.
Yeah.
It's great. You know what I mean? Like, and I think Madball gets more of a chance.
Yeah.
You know, and younger people still, you know, because they're still relevant.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, they're a great band. They deserve to be.
Right.
But I think a lot of, you know, is a 17-year-old kid in Des Moines going to pick up the new Sheer Terror?
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they
the
should.
odds are against that, but yeah, you definitely, I mean, especially within in hardcore, you would hope that there is, like, I mean, and you will know, like, touring Europe, there is such a reverence for not only history, but bands like, you know, that's why Sick of It All can still make a living. They tour twice over in Europe, kill it.
They're good for the year.
And there's obviously such a reverence for that, where it's like, obviously, the culture, as it were, here is clearly, like, more disposable from that perspective.
Right. And I think, you know, I mean, I don't even know if it used to be like, well, Europe, people are just excited that someone's coming through.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I feel like as many bands tour Europe as they do the States.
It's true.
You know what I mean? I think it used to be like, well, you know, only Undertow comes through and Ignite. And there were certain bands that were gigantic that could go over there all the time.
Right.
But I feel like now it's just, I mean, every other
easily
day.
accessible.
Oh,
Sure.
absolutely.
Sure.
I mean, it used to be like, wow, you're going to Europe.
Yeah.
That's like the next
That's
step.
an
You
event.
must have toured the U.S. 5 times already to get there. Now it's kind of like, oh, you just put out a demo. Oh, you're like...
Yeah. Oh, 4 songs? You got that whole set?
All right, cool. You sold out to Holland already. All right, great. Awesome. You know, like, it's cool. I mean, and it's a reflection on how much different, like, punk and hardcore is in 2014 than it was even 15 years ago. The change is incredible.
Totally.
You know?
And speaking of change, I will take you back to I was already aware of Indecision before this event, but so I'm going to take you back. And I'm fairly certain you were still in this band. You were still in the band. You guys came out to California.
Yes.
You played Public Storage, a.k.a. Chain Reaction.
I was thinking about that this morning.
I'm trying to remember if I just went to the show or my old band played it. I'm fairly certain that we played it with you guys. Yeah, actually, I'm trying to think. I don't even know if we were calling ourselves Taken at that point.
Right.
We might have been called Doom Society, which was our terrible punk band before that. Regardless,
it
was one of those things where I was stoked because it was playing with you guys, and on top of it, it's like the guys in Adamantium were there.
Right.
Where I was just like, and there was like, you know, -4 people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember that show so vividly, and I was literally thinking about it this morning.
Right.
Because we drove across country, like played a couple of shows. We were playing for Revelation because The first
was that the show? Was that a showcase show for you?
Yeah, wow, went really well. So
for Jason Upright,
exactly. So he comes, we're like, I mean, we had no illusion that it was going to be a billion people or anything.
Yeah.
So we drive, we play some other shows.
But with the sole purpose of going out, like
right
that,
for all like they're like, hey, we're going to be out here. It was like kind of after the first Indecision record came out, we had like Victory and Revelation kind of interesting. So we were like, we're going to go play for Revelation. It's going to be great.
Right.
Jason Upright, really great dude.
Yeah.
So we go out there. There's remember, there was literally like 12 people in the crowd. It was like awesome. I think I fell off the stage. It was like something awful. So years and years later, Most Precious Blood is out on tour with Bleeding Through.
Oh yeah.
And Brandon Chipetti was like, well, it was either Chipetti or Keith Barney. We're like,
okay,
dude, we came to see you guys in 1998 at Public Storage. We thought it was gonna be nuts. Like, holy fuck! Like, this band from New York, this New York hardcore band's gonna come here. Yep. It's gonna be crazy. And he's like, I could name everybody in the crowd. He was
totally
like, Adamantium, the dudes from Throwdown, the dudes from 18 Bit. I mean, it's awesome that all those bands that went on to become these huge things, they were all there to check us out, but they were it.
It was such a weird. I mean, that was obviously before. When I say Public Storage, just before they even knew what they were doing. So they also had no room for people to stand up front. They had, I don't know if you remember, they had coffee tables. So
I do remember that.
Dude, it was crazy because it was like they had only been doing shows there for less than 6 months.
Oh,
and
wow.
so it was like they tried to have, or it was like a coffee shop. And they're just like, oh yeah, we're gonna have bands play too.
Yeah, but these kinds of.
And it was like, I mean, no one wants to sip a latte listening to hardcore,
right?
And it was just like, it was so disheartening to see. It was just like, oh, like there could be no room for a pit, not like there was enough people to warrant that.
Right.
But I just remember being like, it was such a weird night of just like. Yeah. Like, even at my young 17-year-old age, to be like, man, I kind of feel for the Indecision guys.
Like, wow, these dudes are like, we're all the way from home, and
this is what
playing in front of 9 dudes. And
here's the turnout.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, oh yeah. And he was like, yeah, we just thought it was really weird. We're thinking VOD's huge, so these dudes, it's gonna be crazy. And then we showed up and there was nobody there.
Right. You're like, oh.
On that same tour, I was listening to the Robin Rand one, and he was saying how they drove out somewhere, and the guy's like, oh, we don't do shows. What are you talking about? And he drove away. We literally did the same thing in Studio City, California, on that same tour.
Of course.
We roll in. The guy's like, what are you guys doing here? We're like, oh, we have a show booked here today. And he's like, really? What kind of music are you guys? And we're like, punk, hardcore. He's like, oh, I wish I would have known. We had a big BYO showcase here last night. He's like, we didn't know you guys were playing, but you're more than welcome to. All right? This is a harbinger for terrible things.
You're right. You're more than welcome to.
So we literally were like, we're just going to run down the street, get a sandwich. We'll be right back. We got in the van, drove back to New York. And we were like, fuck this. That was the last day anyway, so we were like,
right.
Do you want to yell for 40 minutes? Because I should have fucked out.
Yeah.
And we just left.
Right, this would essentially be a practice.
Yeah, we know these songs well enough. We've been playing them for years. And we literally drove home from California to New York in whatever hell it was.
Yeah.
And we rolled home. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
It also, I mean, events like that also crystallized in my own head when, the concept of touring, because it's like, you don't understand when you're 14, 15, 16 years old that it's like when a band shows up, you kind of feel like they materialize out of nowhere, even regardless of where they're from.
Right.
You don't even make the concept, the connection of oh, they probably played 30 shows before this and they're fucking exhausted or what.
Right. And they're cracked and they're even eating Taco Bell for 40 days.
Right.
Yeah.
And then to put that all together and all of a sudden realize this is a huge effort. This takes so much planning.
This costs a lot of money to get out. Even in 1998, it's like. I mean, so many times, it's funny, thinking about it now. People are like, oh, yeah, you guys must have done really well back then. I'm like, absolutely not.
No, not even.
We're terrible. It's cool that everyone now can kind of be like, Indecision, I love the Indecision.
Oh,
That's awesome, because nobody came.
Because right, there was a huge disconnect of oh, it's cool, Indecision is a cultural touchstone for hardcore, but it's weird.
No one gave a rat's ass.
Right.
Honestly. We would do tours, we literally toured every summer with Silent Majority.
Right.
Who also now.
Oh, yeah, Reverend.
Oh, my God.
Reverend.
Then we'd play to each other.
Yeah.
There had been times that we'd set up both bands and go, Indecision one song, Silent Majority one song. Because we were just hey, we have to entertain ourselves. I don't want to, And we played someplace in Riverside. We played on I think it was UC Riverside.
Oh, the barn.
Yes. Amazing venue.
Great venue.
You see we look at the flyer, cool, 7 Seconds playing here.
Oh, that'd be a good show.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. We're going to be here. We played, it was us Silent Majority, Millhouse, and Harkonnen.
Oh yeah. Exit Music was the Exit Music tour.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like that really what got him on record. After we were like, dude, they played in front of 9 kids, and it was awesome. You know,
right?
Yeah, there was like nobody there. Like we had pockets here and there, but for the most part, it was like you were Strife for Earth Crisis, or Sick of It All, or you were nobody.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. There was no. Yeah,
there's no middle ground.
Right.
There's no middle class. There was no middle ground. It was either like you're idiots that have like you don't care about your summer and you're just going to waste money, which is fine.
Yeah.
You want to go out and see the world.
Essentially a road trip, right?
Right. Or there was certain bands that obviously made it.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Let me tell you, the holidays are awesome. They've got some great moments, whether it's spending time with friends and family, gift giving, all of the things. I personally love Christmas lights. Like, I can't wait to put them up. It just makes me feel warm inside. But there are moments where it's like, man, it's overwhelming, or I'm feeling really alone or sad. All of the things that just, can kind of compound it during the holidays. That is why you need to take a beat and maybe take that moment for yourself. Give the gift of time to yourself. And that's honestly why I love dipping into therapy. That's why I also love working with BetterHelp, because they make finding a therapist online so dang easy. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Like I said, it's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire, and then you get matched with a licensed therapist. And you can switch therapists at any time for any reason at no additional charge. Please, in this season of giving, give to yourself as well with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Ray to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Ray for 10% off your first month. Take care of yourself, please.
This episode is brought to you by Toyota. We all agree that reducing carbon emissions is a good thing, and once again, Toyota is leading the way. We hear a lot about fully electric vehicles, and Toyota has them, with more on the way. But we also know a BEV is not for everyone, whether it's because of cost, range, or concerns about finding a charging station when you need it. Plus, the raw materials used to manufacture batteries are limited. Enter Beyond Zero, Toyota's vision for a carbon-neutral future, in vehicles and in manufacturing plants too in the years ahead. The materials used to make just one long-range battery for an EV could be used to make batteries for 6 plug-in hybrids or 90 gas-electric hybrids. That's why Toyota's position today is electrified, diversified, empowering you to choose how to reduce your own carbon footprint with the vehicle that's right for you. A hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or battery EV. So shop, learn more, and get details at toyota.com/beyond zero. Toyota, let's go places.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Yeah.
Quote unquote, not, but
yeah. At the
kind of like,
I think I definitely, especially like being from Southern California, it was like that was obviously a pocket where it was like you had bands that like started to click in Southern California from like like Disembodied or like you said VOD did well, and then it was always interesting to be like, oh, a band can travel then 4 hours north or like 8 hours north like San Francisco and play in front of, like you said, like 10 people.
Right, of course.
And it was like bands they're like, man, I wish I could cut out all these other shitty shows. I wish I could cut out like the Midwest or whatever.
Right, just come to the showcase or whatever and just do it, And I mean, it's. I think that's what makes touring so hard these days. Like we always talk about it. It's like, not that we go out touring anymore, but it's like, hey, California's awesome. Seattle, fantastic.
Right.
You still have to go through Wyoming to get there.
Totally.
Either like you bite the bullet and you drive through 3 of the biggest states in the country and just lose money, like you're hemorrhaging money just to get to Seattle, or you play like the rinky-dink. We're playing 35 people, and which is awesome too.
Yeah.
Because those 35 people want to be there.
Of course, yeah.
but it's a huge undertaking, and I didn't realize. You realize that as you get older, like how much is involved in this.
Totally.
Like now that we do like shows here and there, I'm like, holy shit, we used to do this like for months on end. Now I can barely get 5 people in a room for like one show. It's like you know, like I'm launching a space shuttle now. But back then it was like, like you know, European tour. Oh, we're leaving in September. Oh, we get home the day before Thanksgiving. Yeah. All right, no problem.
Right.
You know,
I got nothing going on.
Yeah, I'm gonna pack everything up. All right, I have $500 in cash. This is what I have because you know, like ATMs weren't like everywhere yet. You know, like,
right. Let's put this together.
Yeah, right. Where we go? Oh, first 2 shows are with the business. Sure. That actually happened to us. We were like, we got off like the plane. With the tour dates, whatever. And
sure.
And I'm like 2 shows in Germany. I'm like the business. I'm like, this is the real business. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, this will not be good.
Right.
So it was like the skinhead band called Discipline.
Okay.
Us and the business.
Okay.
And we're like this weird, stupid, like we have no idea what we're doing.
Right.
And it's like just skinheads, but like real skinheads, not
Sure.
like American skinheads that are like, oh, you're not like.
Oh, yeah.
This, I'm like, you could all be Nazis at this. I have
Of
no
course.
idea what the hell's going on. I don't know what you're yelling at me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're singing about drinking and driving. We're a bunch of like weird, straight edge fucking atheists. Like,
Right.
This is gonna be great.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, like just like to know how much of. I mean, I it's the undertaking that it you know that was touring in the 90s.
Right. The logistics behind it that you just didn't. You did it because it was a necessity, but you didn't put any thought into it.
Right. I mean, that's all you really knew. So it was kind of like, oh well, you know, we're going to play Virginia.
Yeah.
I take out the Rand McNally and I figure out how the hell to get to Virginia.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I actually did I just did like a story about this for like a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Like doing an actual paper zine.
Oh sure.
And he's like, can you like touring in the 90s? I was like, it's complete like the difference between like listening to Rollins talk about touring with Black Flag,
of course,
to us in the 90s to like what goes on in 2014.
Yeah.
It could be 200 years.
Oh, totally.
The difference.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I was like, there were no cell phones.
Yeah.
There were no maps. There were no like GPS systems.
Of course.
I didn't have any way of being like, I wonder if there's vegan food around here.
Oh yeah,
It was
yeah.
like kind
Good
of
luck.
like, yeah,
Right. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, like it would be like
You asked people at the show.
Yeah, like hey, oh, you can come back to vegan potluck at my house.
Right.
Awesome. We're gonna watch cherry videos all night and fucking eat. Yeah, sick. You know, and you know, I would like we would drive to the center of the city and like hope to find kids in like a hardcore shirt. And
you'd
follow
look
them.
right. You'd look for the
like
scene.
fucking creepy bat, like in a van, like following some random.
Do you guys know where the show is?
Yeah, like hey, you have an Earth Crisis shirt on. You know where? You know, like they're
Right.
like, oh, there's a show tonight, which is usually our story. Like, oh yeah, we were playing down the street.
Right.
Oh, no one goes to that venue. Oh, cool.
Oh, great.
That's
right.
yeah. That's yeah.
Maybe we'll go to the mall and then look for people to like invite to the show.
Like hey, we used to lie because there was another band called Indecision.
Oh, okay.
That was like a Grateful Dead band.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
So like random like 50-year-old Hessians would show up and they're like, and they just come in and like no one would dissuade them.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's
You're like,
come on in, buddy.
You need that door money.
Yeah. That's $8. That'll, you know.
Right.
That's like 2 of us at Taco Bell. Like we're gonna play kings.
We're absolutely perfect. But you yourself, you were born and raised on the East Coast.
In Brooklyn.
Okay. You are tried and true.
Yes. Like I'm a real.
And you,
real New Yorker.
I presume at this point in your life, you could never, ever, ever see yourself living anywhere else, or
You know,
could you?
I absolutely could.
Okay.
I would totally live in the Joshua Tree area.
Oh, okay.
We went there for a bachelor party for a friend of mine. It was like 13 whacked out straight edge dudes at a bachelor party, and like, so
Right.
it wasn't like we weren't doing like peyote.
Yeah, yeah,
It
you
was
weren't-
like,
you
we were
weren't
climbing
having a
stuff.
trip.
Yeah,
Right.
You know, and I was just like, wow, I could totally live in that area.
Oh, okay.
Which is like the complete antithesis of what I've grown up to be. Like, and-
Totally.
But I could totally like
Interesting.
live in a house.
You could totally
live
just
in the
kinda, like-
desert and be like, fuck it, this
Yeah.
is it. This is what I do now.
Right. You're like it'll take you 6 months to adjust to the lack of noise.
Right. And then I'd probably melt. You know, my Irish skin would probably burn. But
Right.
I got actually, you know, I get
Okay.
I'd be wearing like some kind of rattlesnake belt or something. I think I could do it.
Right. Is it that's? I mean, it's good that you can admit that because I think that's a sign of maturity. Because I think so many people would just be like, oh no, I would never fucking best city in the world. I would never. I mean, and there's an element of that, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I love New York, and I think it's great. It's absolutely different than it used to be.
Yeah.
For good, for good and bad.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But I think like this time around, like even with the band, like we've gotten to go certain places that you don't really get to appreciate when you're doing it like every day.
Of course.
You know, so now like we flew out a couple years ago to go to Seattle.
Right.
I could totally live here. You know, or like, hey.
Yeah, because at that it's such a good point. Yeah. Because at that point you make an effort to see outside the 4 blocks you're surrounded by the venue, which is usually in a shitty area.
Absolutely, it's never it's never like, oh, this is like the coolest place. Nowadays it might be different, but it used to be like, you guys aren't from around here, are you?
Right.
No. Yeah, we're from New York. They're like, yeah, get whatever you need. You should go back to wherever you're staying. Don't be walking around because when it gets, I was like, oh, and we're like dumb New York, like. Yeah. We're never tourists. We're New York.
Right,
like
get
I
out
can
of
go
here.
anywhere. Like that was my whole thing. Like I'm not a tourist. I'm from New York. Anywhere I go, I'm at home. It doesn't matter.
I've got an experience.
Yeah, like it's cool. I've been to bad places. This is fine.
Right.
But like going back, it's kind of like it's such a blur. Like when you're on tour, as you know, it's kind of like LA, San Diego, then we're going here, and then we're in Tucson, then we're over here. It's kind of like you don't get to appreciate it. It's cool.
Yeah.
Maybe if you have time, you go see like
you legitimately have to make an effort. I'll never. I was always that guy in my band being like, let's go see shit. Whereas everybody else was like, fuck you, I'm staying here in the van or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And I'll never forget the one. I was like, I rallied everybody to be like, dude, we were staying at Friends in Salem, and like, dude, we gotta see Plymouth Rock. Our nation was founded on this. Everybody, let's do this. And then we go there, and it's the smallest ass rock in the middle of a cage, and it was like, everybody was so pissed at me to be like, dude, we just drove like an hour, it's a day off. And but yeah, again, it's that you really have to put forward that effort in order
Rachel
to see
was great
anything.
at that. Rachel would be the one like, all right, we're 2.5 hours away from, like I have pictures of us in front of Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
4 idiots from Brooklyn and a girl from Jersey in front of Mount Rushmore. Like none of my family have ever seen Mount Rushmore. Like, oh, like we're 2.5 hours away from the Hoover Dam, but we're gonna go.
Right.
Awesome.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I don't know if I would
Yeah.
have had the kind of taken the
initiative.
That's what incentive. Initiative to kind of do that myself, but like it's kind of like, all right.
You need that sort of like cheerleader.
That one person to kind of be like, we got to do it, because otherwise I'm like, I'm really tired. And I'd love to just
you can
sleep
find a million
somewhere.
reasons of why you don't need
I'm
to do
dying
that.
for a bagel. I just want to sit around, But then it's like, when the hell am I ever going to be back here?
Right. I need to soak this up.
Yeah, I'm in like South Dakota. I'm never coming back here. Like, I'm never coming back here. Like, I have to do this.
Right.
But I think I could totally see myself living. West Coast. I think I like California. I never did. Like I hated LA.
LA's terrible.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll be the first to say that.
Because I feel like it's kind of like, well, if I'm going to move out of New York, like as far as like cities go, I'm going to move somewhere. If I'm moving out of New York, it has to be somewhere warm.
Sure.
Makes no sense for me to go to Philly, Boston. It's like the same shit.
You've already got the weather.
And
yeah.
I like New York better.
Right.
But like, I loved San Diego. I loved like Ocean County, Orange County.
Yeah.
Like, a few times we've been in LA, like playing like the Roxy and stuff. Like this place sucks.
Oh
I live in the Bay. I like the Bay a lot.
Yeah.
Like literally Portland, Seattle, like, anywhere out there, I could totally picture.
Sure.
myself
Okay.
being
You can
like,
picture
hey,
yourself.
I'm normal. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, it would have to be like warm. I wouldn't be like, hey, I'm moving to Chicago. It's colder.
Right. Yeah, that's
it's
great.
A beautiful city.
I get to experience more snow.
Yeah. Awesome. Lake effect. Great.
Yeah. And the and so your family structure, you have brothers and sisters?
I have 3 sisters. I have 1 younger sister and 2 older sisters.
Wow. So that must have been interesting being raised in a predominantly, a feminine household, as it were.
Absolutely. I mean, our setup is really kind of strange, and every time I tell people, they're like, really?
Yeah.
So like, my younger sister's 2 years younger than me.
Okay.
My next oldest sister is 11 years older than me.
And
my oldest sister is 17 years old. So she's literally, a lot of times, my friends' moms are the same age as my oldest sister.
Right.
Or close.
Yeah.
Like, oh, she's 55, my mom's 57. Like,
that's literally a generational gap.
Yes,
in some respects.
Right. So I was kind of almost raised by the older sisters. Like my father worked like super hard, so it was kind of like, he was never really around.
Right.
Like, we watched baseball and that kind of stuff, like dude stuff, and then like everything else was like my 2 older sisters and my mom.
Yeah.
And it kind of gave me like a different view on a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think a strong feminine upbringing, it definitely gets you prepared in so many ways that a guy, a dude, generally speaking, can't get you emotionally ready and be like, oh, like I can talk about my feelings.
Right.
Like,
it's not like, no, everything's cool. I'm not. Like,
push that shit down. Push it down immediately. Yeah. It'll be better when it explodes in 20 years.
I'm gonna take this down on somebody's face.
And especially the Irish in you as well. Yes. It's like, oh, that's like, yeah, I'm gonna push this down, and in 70 years, that it will be able to. Generationally speaking, my grandson will be feeling this.
Yes, my family is quite Irish, so we're all like, no, don't mention it. We won't fight. But I'm like, fuck that. Like I'm, like I think from the get go, I was like punk rock soul, and I was like, it's very symptomatic of like almost like an alcoholic family. It's kind of like, don't say anything.
Oh, of course.
I know so and so screwed up. Don't even bother. Don't mention anything. So I would kind of be like, fuck that. I'm telling her.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
Yeah, and they were like, no. And I'm like, not even to like be like, don't get her started. She's gonna fight somebody. It was kind of like, you did X, and you need to know that.
Right.
But like my family was everything's like avoided.
Swept under the rug.
Yeah, it's like a week from now we won't even remember it. I'm like, well, I kind of.
Yeah. They'd be like, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Right.
But especially being from an Irish family, does the common conception is that like, oh, like, alcoholism, it runs rampant.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it does.
Okay.
Oh, it does. Oh yeah.
And your family was afflicted with that as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like my father, my grandfather, my maternal grandmother. It runs in the blood, so it's kind of like hardcore kind of in that aspect. I mean, in a million aspects, but in that aspect, kind of like saved my life. You know what I mean? Like, if it wasn't for like, hey, I'm like 14 and I'm listening to Minor Threat, I'm like, holy crap, I don't really want to drink, and that dude totally, says it perfectly. You know what I mean?
I can plug myself into this thing. Right.
It makes total sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like my mom's overjoyed that still to this day I'm still straight edge. And like,
I'm sure.
You know what I mean? Like the other ones drink and it's nothing terrible.
Right.
But it's kind of like there's that gene somewhere.
Oh, totally.
And if I ever tapped into that, it would be awful. I wouldn't want to do that. And I wouldn't know what it would end up being.
Right.
So it's like,
well, yeah, you would probably swing the complete opposite direction and just be like, just immerse yourself in alcohol.
Right. And like, am I going to be like the crying drunk? Am I going to be like the fighting drunk while fighting everyone? Like, you're into hardcore, you're fucked up. There's a reason why you're in it. Man or woman, if you're into hardcore, there's something inherently off with you.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're attracted to a subculture that, like, for all intent and purposes, is meant to embrace, being a misfit, being the outsider in some capacity. So yeah, there's the laws of attraction exist in every element of that, including punk and hardcore.
Oh, absolutely. Right.
I mean, it sounds like you were introduced to like punk and hardcore at a relatively early age.
Yeah. And like freshman year of high school, like a friend of mine had given me like a tape. It was like Minor Threat on one side, and like it was like either Dinosaur. I want to say it was Dinosaur Jr. or Sickle on the other side.
Okay.
And I was kind of like, I don't know what the hell these people are talking about. But it's awesome.
Right.
I don't understand a word they're saying.
Sure.
But there's a lot of backups, and it's like dudes screaming, and I'm into it. And it's kind of like, I wish I could go and find that dude now and like hug him.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you don't realize,
no
25
realization.
years out or whatever, 23 years out, like, you have no idea how much you've changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just giving me a shitty TDK tape with, like,
Totally.
Minor Threat on one side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's probably, like, some regular dude. I remember James Kim, a nice Korean dude.
Yeah.
No, but he probably has nothing to do with music or in any way that we would,
Of course.
But, like, if he only knew how much he impacted me and all my friends' lives, that we all got to go out and do stuff.
Right.
Not necessarily on my merit, but it was kind of like, I got into it, met these guys,
Yeah.
we all went to high school together.
Right,
So
and the general enthusiasm, it's like usually you need those people who are active, and you've always struck me, like, just as an outside observer of you and your bands and the way you express yourself, you would strike me as the type of person that would be a cheerleader for all of that stuff. Where it's like you may not be the first or the second or the third to find it in your group of friends, but once you did, you were going to be like, guys, we're going along with this. Like, this is amazing.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And I feel like I even find myself doing that today, like, with my older friends. I can't tell you how many times I go, no, I know, I get it, but dude, you got to check this out.
Right.
Like, and there's older guys that are kind of like, I listen to. I'm like, no, but you're missing out, man.
Right. Hit this up, right?
Fucking Have Heart, or My Life is War. Or I'm like, there's some shit going on now that I'm sure you're overlooking, or even like Incendiary, like a band from New York. Today.
Amazing band.
Like, dude, like,
yeah,
you're
they
really
sound
missing out.
Right. They sound like Indecision.
Yeah, they kind of do. Like,
yeah.
They have like a high pitched singer guy and his mash parts. Like, it's exactly if you liked us, it's like, and I mean, they obviously do their own thing, but it's kind of like,
oh yeah,
I'm always like dude, I know you're old. I know you only want to listen to this,
right?
And like, you'll only go out when Hatebreed plays or AF plays, and that's cool,
right?
But you're really missing out if you're at all interested in any of this. Yeah, you need to check out X, Y, and Z. Like, Burn was great, but there's stuff going on afterwards, man. You'd be really surprised.
Totally. I find it too. It's interesting because I think if you describe it to people as in like, okay, hey, like, I mean, music is cyclical, as everybody knows, and independent music is obviously not, immune to that. So it's like you can be like, hey, you haven't listened to music in 10 to 15 years, like new music,
right?
You'll be shocked at what you hear, because like these bands that are younger are aping the stuff of what's happening or what's happened in the early to mid 90s, and you'd be like, hey, this is like they're wearing their influences in their sleeves, and it's like,
absolutely.
and then I always find it when I put it in that context, it's like,
oh yeah, like I see that every band ever is ripping off Quicksand now, and they were doing that in the mid '90s, and like,
I kind of dig that,
right.
But I feel like quite often I'm like the kind of like, just do yourself a favor, just check it out.
Right.
You might not like it, you know.
You'd be surprised, right?
And it's kind of like, it's a bit of an undertaking sometimes to kind of be like, hey man, like to convince people, because it's like, you're still kind of like on the periphery, so you're somewhat interested.
Right.
And like you're not only interested based on something from 20 years ago. There's something that still brings you around.
Yeah.
But like you'd be surprised. There's a lot of intelligent, great hardcore. You know, if you like stuff in the 90s, there's bands now that are doing it better. It's like quite often.
Right.
You know, it's like,
and with better recordings.
Better recordings, smarter lyric. You know, it's kind of like if you like, say, Strife and Judge, you might want to check out Half Hard. You'd be really shocked.
Yeah.
You know, like, or even if like you like the mid 90s like emo kind of thing, like Hoover or whatever. You know, I'm like, check out like My Life Is War. Kind of sounds like that.
Totally.
You know, like the new. You know, it's kind of like melodic, and you know, there's certain bands like those bands that kind of come around. That's kind of like,
holy shit.
And they're like cross generation, and like even like, you know, you can't listen to everything.
No.
You know, as you get older, you have to make time and kind of. And
it takes more effort as you get older.
Yeah, and I think you have more of like a discerning taste as well. It's
Totally.
Kind of like, you know, it's like,
you know your wheelhouse.
Like I've heard this 17 times before. I didn't like this in 1996. I'm not going to like it in 2004.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, there's sometimes these bands that come along and you're like, all right, I'm seeing something like special.
This is progressed.
Yeah,
right.
And like it's like, this is like, when you look back over the years, this is going to be something that you're like, oh, you got to see so and so. You know what I mean? Like, I even had that feeling like with like Bane.
Yeah.
That I was like, you know, we were sitting there, like, I forget what show. I mean, like, every show we would just be like 7 billion people singing along and having like the greatest time. And like, I turned to my friend, I'm like, this is
we're
probably
seeing
like,
something.
This is Black Flag for us, kind of like. This is kind of like when people go, oh, when I saw, you know, Bad Brains at A7, like, this is our version of that, because it's like,
people are going to reference that show. You're right, totally.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like.
All right, you heard me talk about the new H2O record at the very top of the show. Here's some more details about it. So first of all, thank you so much to Bridge 9 Records for believing in this show and deciding to come on as a sponsor. It's so awesome when labels do that because, you know, I'll be frank, there are not a lot of record labels that are interested in spending money because after all, the music industry is in a terrible place. Thank you so much, Bridge 9. But I'm very, very excited to talk to you about the new H2O record. So most of you can recall the interview I had with Toby, I don't know, 50 or some odd episodes ago. But if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to it because it's a very, it's a revealing conversation. But this is the first new H2O record in 7 years. And it comes out on October 9th of this year, 2015. Pre-order the record, b9store.com/H2O. And they'll be on tour in November and December doing their own U.S. headliner. Then, in January, they're going over to Europe, where they are immensely popular. They're on their Persistence tour with a bunch of other bands, like Terror and Ignite, Twitching Tongues, a bunch of other great bands. What's even cooler about this particular release is that, Toby, the singer, knows a lot of people. He knows a skater, maybe you've heard of him before, called Steve Caballero. Awesome, because they did a music video with him where they're skating around, playing guitars. It's really, really fun. Pre-order the record for b9store.com/H2O and check out all the other cool stuff they have going on. I actually had Chris Wren, the owner of the label, on 20 or so shows ago, and it renewed my faith that people running record labels, it's a thankless job, and it's very difficult to make ends meet, but Chris has been doing it for close to 20 years, or actually over 20 years now, I think. It's incredible. So check out the new H2O record. Check out Bridge 9 Records in general. Yeah, thank you very much. Here's the rest of the show.
So often look back and it's like, it was better here, it was better there.
Of course.
I can't say that for certain that it ever was.
No.
But I think like there's so much, like there's a time and a place that like you'll see a band and, you know, I think of how many great bands there were in the 90s.
Yep.
And I feel like, maybe I'm biased, but I feel like the 90s were like the most kind of aggressive.
Well, there were so many subgenres of music that were existing in all these geographical pockets that it was just like, it was such a vibrant time where it's like you saw when you rolled through certain cities or when you started to pay attention to certain geographical locations.
Right.
Sonically, you were just like, oh, I can, like, this band's probably from here. And then you were probably able to be right with that.
Right, absolutely.
And it was also just like, it was like so strange to be like, for Southern California, it was such a melting pot where it's like you could drive 2 hours north, from Orange County into like Santa Barbara and the whole ebullition scene, and you were just like, bands like Yaphet Kotto and everything that was happening there. You were just
the
like
smell or whatever the hell it was,
right? And you were just like, totally,
yeah.
The living room. You would just be like, your mind would be blown because you'd be like, this like. Drive 2 hours south and it's like this is metalcore heaven,
right?
And it was like it just was so it was a total, every scene was trying to find its foothold somewhere.
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot to it, and I think that's why almost nowadays that sound is like so neat. Now, because it's kind of like you could go to a show, even listening to I was listening to the Matt Pryor podcast, not to refer to everything you've done.
That's fine, I appreciate it.
But like he was talking about something. And like I was actually at the show. He was like the first time Get Up Kids played CBGBs.
Yeah.
And it was literally Get Up Kids and Braid.
Right.
97A, Spaz and Monster X. Like, are you what? Yeah. And I was there, and then people would see the flyer now, but is this like a fanzine or is this? I'm like, no, this really happened.
Yeah.
Like this really happened.
This is
like,
real.
I saw Spaz and Piebald at a bowling alley.
Yeah. Of course.
You know what I mean? It was like such a random array, and for the most part, it was. There was a lot of crossover.
Right.
Like one day you might play like we always like use the example like literally in like 3 different weeks we played like one show with Hot Water Music and Torch to Rome and like those kind of like Seeing Red kind of bands.
Yep.
The next weekend we played with Avail and 400 Years.
Yep.
And the next weekend after that we played with 25 to Life. It was kind of like, and it all kind of sort of made sense. Like it was kind of like, but I think there were so many bands that it was just like it almost felt new. Like when you listen to, say, a band like Harvest, you're like, who the fuck ever did anything like this before?
Right. And they're from Minneapolis, right?
Yeah,
right.
Like they must be mad because it's really cold all the time.
Of course.
Or like Disembodied.
Yep.
That one note that they had.
Totally.
It became its own genre. Almost.
Yep.
Like that weird, like
yeah, exactly. Right.
And I feel like there were so many bands like that, around the country.
Right.
That it was just kind of, it was just so much. There was so much stuff going on.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm older and a little bit more out of touch. I don't feel like there's as much of that going on.
Sure.
Now. It's kind of like, you're a '90s band. You're a youth crew band.
Right.
You're a beat down moshcore band, and that's it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, we're always going to look back nostalgically on the eras that we were most involved. From a touring activity standpoint. But it's like there's total truth to the fact that it's like. When bands can obviously like fly to the West Coast and do like a West Coast weekend, and like when bands started to do that of a level that I was like, they can't afford.
I was like, how are they pulling this off?
I'm like, oh yeah. When In My Eyes did it, it's like, of course it makes sense because
they're huge. They're going to sell at the showcase, and it's going to be crazy.
Totally. But then it was just like when certain bands, it was like started to whatever random bands like if Foundation comes out to the West Coast, I was just like. They can afford that,
right?
I was like, they can afford 5 plane tickets. That's $2,500 at least,
right? Like I saw them; they were like on one of the Unbroken shows. I'm like, how the hell are they flying out to like San Diego to play one show?
Yeah,
like, there's no.
I was like, straight up, their guarantees probably $500 at the most.
Yeah, like they're taking a hit. They really want to play with them,
But it's like when you have the ability to kind of do that, it's like you're completely overlooking these scenes that are obviously like we were joking about. You just total flyover states,
right?
But it's like you would see these weird things like like happening in Omaha, Nebraska, where it was just like this weird sound and like nothing ever took hold because it was culturally devoid of like a scene,
right?
That was able to foster itself over years and years and years. But it was, there definitely is a lot of fertility in the grounds that were being laid in the mid-'90s because that was such an apex of like independent music in general.
Right, across the board, not just in punk and hardcore.
Yeah,
everything,
totally.
Kind of,
Watching your musical progression and the exits in each of your bands from Indecision, Most Precious Blood. It seems like even though you were rooted in the scene and being active and stuff like that, you always seemed to have a sense of like, there's an expiration date with this. Like, I have to concentrate on real life in some capacities. Is that just me projecting on you, or was there some truth in that when you did exit both your bands? It was just like, there's fucking finances and like stuff, real life.
Right. I mean, I didn't know if I necessarily looked at it like kind of like, hey, I can only do this for so long,
Yeah.
But I think it was kind of like. Before I was into punk and hardcore, I was like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. I'm going to be like a student. I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to do this. Then it was kind of like, well, like these things kind of came about that I was like, I'd be an idiot to like turn this down.
Okay.
So it was kind of like...
Opportunities presented.
Absolutely. And it was kind of like, when the band started, it was like, well, like say when Indecision started. I would be surprised if we ever played even Manhattan. Never mind, you know.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, well, all right, we'll put out these demos. Oh, a 7-inch, holy crap, this is really happening. Like, it's like, we're a band now. Like, this is real.
Right.
Then it kind of, like, progressed, and it was like, well, you know, I can tour during the summer. Then it was like, all right, well, then I graduated college. Well, there's really nothing really forcing me to do anything else.
Right.
So, do you want to go on? Okay, we'll go to Europe. Or we'll go do this. Or we'll go, and it kind of, like, it just kind of snowballed. So, it, like, I kind of had this plan set for myself.
Okay.
It would just kind of, like, spread out a little bit more because these opportunities, you know, kind of presented themselves.
Okay.
That I could have never foreseen.
Sure.
You know, and it was kind of like, yes, I would go do this. Like, even with Most French Blood, when it first started, we're like, this would be cool. We'll do weekends.
Right.
You know, and we're all in agreement. It's like, yeah, you know what? We're going to be adults, and we're just going to, like, play on the weekends. You know, if there's, like, a week tour somewhere, we can go to Europe, whatever.
Right.
But, like, we can't do this. You know, I can't.
For a real deal.
You know?
Sure.
And they're like, yeah, we're just going to do a demo. And then it's like, we do this demo. And then it's like, oh, Truska wants to put it out. I'm like, well, Truska has everything cool. All right, cool. And then it's kind of like, all right, so Sickville wants us to come down to Florida with them. Okay. And it's like,
hey, you want to play Furnace Fest?
Yeah, right. And then it was, that was a whole. We can get back to that. That was quite the experience.
I remember seeing, because Taken played Furnace Fest, and it was like, I was so stoked because, like, I mean, I had heard you guys, but then when you did the Unbroken ripoff shirts, I was just like, the ones that immediately faded away after one wash.
Oh, man, we did them ourselves. We were very good at it. Yeah.
It was, but
DIY, man.
Of course, but it was definitely one of those things that just it endeared me even further to your band, because I was like, oh yeah, Unbroken.
This is like, and then that was a whole other, you know, and then it kind of like snowballed, and it was like, well, all right. Then once things ended with both bands, I was kind of like, well, time to go back to work, go back to school, go back to do this. So it's kind of like, I literally have alternated school and the band for like the last 20 years.
Okay.
Like, it kind of just like, it was like, you know, graduated college, went on tour, left the band, you know, went to grad school. Graduated grad school. A year or two later, here comes No Fresh Blood. And we're not going to really do anything. We're going to have full-time jobs and just do this on the weekend. Weekend Warriors.
Right.
All right, we're touring the whole, you know, country and we're doing this. All right, so I quit my job. We all quit our jobs.
Yeah.
And like did it full-time. And it was like mind-blowing. It was like, I have my own apartment that I can do this full-time. This is insane. Like,
right.
You know? And it was just kind of like a fruitful time for everybody. The early 2000s was kind of like...
Oh, yeah, the heyday. Yeah, because by that point, it's like, I always reference, I mean, Poison the Well was such a huge band to kind of break through what... I mean, because obviously it's like Hatebreed had already kind of escalated to that next level. They were like, it was like, they're now in the metal community, even though it's clearly they still...
They're a hardcore band.
Yeah.
They just...
But it was, Poison the Well, I think, just like opened it up so much where it was just like, oh my gosh, so much can be kind of, you know, reaped from being a band on this sort of level, on the Triskel and Ferret level.
Right.
And then it just, then it's like the doors blew open for everybody, where it was like
Bridge 9 bands, you know. Like,
totally.
If you think of all the bands that were doing it full time in like the 2001 to 2005 area.
Yeah.
You know, it was like Hope Conspiracy, Bane, American Nightmare, Converge. It was like everybody was doing it full time.
Right.
And it was fine. It was great. It worked out for everyone.
And everyone can put those pieces together, and it's just like, wow, that's crazy that it was such a fertile time.
Right.
So that's interesting. I guess I never looked at it from that perspective of like, just like you were just kind of keeping your head down and just being like, well, like I can't say no to this. I can't say no to this opportunity. Like,
right.
I just kind of like putting one foot in front of it. So like, what did you have, like, even before, I mean, like you were saying, music kind of took hold of you. Did you have a path in regards to like, yo, this is what I want to do for some sort of career? Like, was there any semblance of that? Or was there...
I mean, I think I wanted, like, once I started in college, I knew I was really into like psychology.
Okay.
So then I went back and got like my master's in forensic psychology.
Okay.
I was like, I always really wanted to do law too, so I don't know. So it's like, after Most Fresh Blood, I was like, I'm gonna go to law school. So then I went to law school, and then, you know, it was kind of like, then like literally after law school stopped, it was kind of like, well, you know, we like Indecision reunited to do a few benefits for a friend of ours that had cancer, that was like getting alternative treatments that Medicaid would pay for. So it was like, hey, for $500 he gets a week of treatment. So it's like, okay,
why would we not do this? Right?
Yeah, so like we put together a bunch of shows, like all the merch we donated, you know. So it was kind of like, that was really fun,
right?
And it was a lot of work to do this,
right?
So, you know, let's keep it open. Like, we'll see,
yeah.
You know. And it was kind of like, when we first did it, it was just like Rachel, Justin, and I, and then two of our friends like filled in because the other two guys weren't really into it. Then it was kind of like, all right, the next show, the original drummer was like, all right, I'll do it. And then so they all came back. So like literally from 2007 on, it's been
the core group, right?
Yeah, so it kind of, so once I literally graduated law school on May 1st or something, or April 30th.
Yeah.
And I was in Chicago on May 1st at Burning Fight.
Show, right?
It was kind of like, all right. And I was like, shit, I really should be studying for the bar, but I'm at a hardcore show in Chicago. All right.
I guess I'm back on this.
Yeah, I guess this is happening again. All right, cool.
This episode is brought to you by Toyota. We all agree that reducing carbon emissions is a good thing, and once again, Toyota is leading the way. We hear a lot about fully electric vehicles, and Toyota has them, with more on the way. But we also know a BEV is not for everyone, whether it's because of cost, range, or concerns about finding a charging station when you need it. Plus, the raw materials used to manufacture batteries are limited. Enter Beyond Zero, Toyota's vision for a carbon-neutral future, in vehicles and in manufacturing plants too in the years ahead. The materials used to make just one long-range battery for an EV could be used to make batteries for 6 plug-in hybrids or 90 gas-electric hybrids. That's why Toyota's position today is electrified, diversified, empowering you to choose how to reduce your own carbon footprint with the vehicle that's right for you. A hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or battery EV. So shop, learn more, and get details at toyota.com/beyond0. Toyota, let's go places.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
I have diabetes. I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
I have asthma. I'm at risk too.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
I mean, it's something that's obviously transcended, hardcore in general is, obviously for those that love sacrifice lyric, it's so interesting because it's, very few things kind of, bubble up past the surface of just, being, whatever, bang, can we start again?
Right.
That will, people may have tattooed on them, but it's, that's never bubbling up to even further, how it has with those lyrics.
Right.
And the feeling that it must evoke inside of you for something. I mean, because I always reference art once it's been, once you put it out into the world, it's not yours anymore.
Right.
And whatever intent you have originally putting it together.
Right.
Where does it go from there? And I'm sure you've had so many random and mixed feelings in regards to the way those. Because I mean, a lot. I mean, essentially, people obviously chop up the quote where it's
right.
And a lot of people take it out of, not a lot of people.
Context.
It's 100% out of context.
Right, and it's a beautiful thing.
Right. That core message. Right.
Yeah, it's completely out of context.
Did you ever kind of battle that sort of this is not meant for this? Did you ever try to actively not push against people who were trying to take it away, but did you ever have any battles inside your own head in regards to that?
I mean, I think we all were well, that wasn't really the intent.
Right.
But that's almost better than what we could have thought it made it out to be. So it's kind of it started off very small. It literally started off a bunch of the dudes in Silent Majority Millhouse got it on a tour.
Right.
And they're like, we're going to, we have a surprise for you guys. And we're like, what? I'm like, it was forever hey, we're gonna fuck with you and like leave a dead fish in your car. Like it was like, oh, fucking great, man. I'm gonna smell for a week now because you put an onion in our, carburetor. Or whatever.
Right.
So like they were like, and it was like, I think it was Tommy McGarty. I'm like, what exactly is it? Like 7 words? And I was like, like the 7 dead, like the. It's like a George Carlin. I don't. What are we talking?
Where are we going?
And they came back with it. Like, holy shit, man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Never thinking like I'm like, wow, that's crazy. These 7 dudes of all bands that I love, all have this. That's all. Like, that's really cool.
Great, yeah.
And it was kind of like, I'm sorry.
It's fine.
And it was kind of like, oh, and then these other guys, and then it was like the more people we met were like, how the fuck did this happen? You know what I mean? It kind of like it expanded, and like random bands and random dudes that I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like,
what's that? Yeah. What's most random? Like the ones that like.
Avenged Sevenfold used it for their thank yous.
Oh yeah.
And a record, and it's like for those all about sacrifice, fucking whatever.
Right.
And like, or just bands I would never. And this is no slight against them, but like bands that I was like, Sing from Atreyu has him on his leg.
Right.
And I'm sure he's a hardcore dude.
Yeah.
But hearing them, I would never be like that band.
No,
that
right.
Dude totally likes Indecision. I could totally tell. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's totally
but
true.
Like there he was. Like we played with them years ago in Most Precious Blood, and there he was. Like, that's fucking awesome. I'm like, you're in this gigantic band, and you like my stupid little band. Like, this is awesome.
Right.
And then it kind of spiraled. It kind of like got a little out of control when it was like, it's gotten to a point that it's no longer assigned to us. At all.
Not at all.
It's not even like, hey, I saw this band's lyric and I like it, I'm going to get it. I don't even know what this band is.
Yeah, no one can even attribute it to the source. Like,
at all. It's kind of like...
it's like the keep calm and carry on thing.
Yeah.
Like, that can be appropriated to, the British military, but you're just like, if you ask a random person in the street, they wouldn't know that.
T-shirt.
Everybody, it's every rip-off design possible.
right, and it was kind of like, I'll get people that'll like tag me on Instagram, like they'll be looking through people's like tattoo portfolios.
Yeah.
And I like, that's cool, but this dude definitely has no idea where this came from.
Yeah,
like,
not at all.
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I mean, like if I see some, random person on the street and I'm like,
yeah.
And then you're going to be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like this actually came up, there was a big thing, I don't know if you had seen it, like a soldier. It was like
Yeah.
We're like, holy Jesus, this is insane.
Right.
Like over the years we've had things that have kind of like
bubbled up where it's like,
right,
whoa,
what the fuck? Like, we've had like, hey, a friend of ours died and like got lyrics on their headstone. Like, this is fucking creepy. Like, this is amazing though. Like, this is like something I could tell my mom, being like, hey, remember me being an idiot for all these years? Like, look at this. Or like,
yeah, something substantial, quote unquote substantial to show up.
Yeah, it's
that
kind
it
of
resonated
like,
with somebody.
Right. I mean, like they wanted me like to be like an Irish tenor, and then I was kind of like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Like my father's like, you can sing. Can't you sing like that Hootie and the Blowfish guy? I'm like, I don't want to sing like that guy. Like,
that's incredible.
Like it was really like that. It was kind of like I'd be like, but I played in Zagreb, Croatia. And he'd be like, all right, that's fine.
Yeah. They're like, oh, that's okay.
That's pretty. All right, okay. But like, so people would tag it. I'm like, I know for a fact that no one knows this sort of stuff. So like, we see this with the soldier. Like, holy shit, this is incredible. It's like, I mean, even if it wasn't us, it's like, what a photo. Like, Jesus, this is incredible.
Right.
So like, we kind of like started the machinations to like kind of reach out to the guy, and then we found out who he was, and those sort of stuff. And like, we were like, all right, so we ended up doing like a benefit shirt.
Yeah, I remember those. Yeah. Well, it's cool that you guys obviously kind of, you wanted to attach it back to the original narrative, to what you guys like. It was all for good, but it's like you connecting to something like that gives everything more of a context and more of a meaning, I'm sure, for everything.
I mean, it wasn't even like that was like our ulterior motive. It was kind of well, maybe this dude knows the band.
Of
and
course.
If we can help anyone out, I would rather have someone that's like in our community.
Of course.
Where they're not even like, they like whoever they liked, but they were like, oh, you're a hardcore kid? I would rather help out a punk or hardcore kid
100%.
than anyone else, So
totally.
we kind of started the machinations. We were like, Justin had a tie-in to like the Thomas Towers Foundation, all sort of stuff. So we're going to start, raising money.
Right.
Justin ends up meeting a guy. Then it like, they were like, his family started making for those Love Sacrifice shirts. It's been fantastic. And then it would start like family members and other like people from his community in Ohio would be like, I would really like to check out this Indecision band. We need some little bit more faith-based music. I'm like, holy shit, you don't know what you're getting yourself into, lady.
Back this out.
First record has a kid beating another kid with a crucifix. You do not want to be involved in this. And like Justin ended up meeting the guy and he was like, yeah, I had no idea who you guys were.
Yeah.
And he's like, I thought I made it up. And we're like, oh, all right. I mean, that's cool. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
Hard to really?
I know.
How do you make that up? That's like a weird string of words that you just.
Totally. Yeah,
you know, and I'm like, you might have seen it on like something like Flash.
Of course.
Tattoo art or whatever.
You might have seen it as a meme, right?
Right, or something. That's cool, you know.
Right.
And then, I mean, he was really like an awesome dude. We ended up like, we raised enough money to like outfit his house for him.
That's great.
I think they raised like 30 or 40 grand.
It's amazing.
Like awesome. You know what I mean? And it continues. I'm like, it goes into like the from tunnels to tower, and there's like the guy that played Lieutenant Dan.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He has his own foundation too that helps.
Okay, yeah.
So it's kind of like
that's right.
All the money from EVR does it for us, and they just donate all the money.
That's spectacular.
You know? But it's kind of like it's come to a point that's like, and not even that like you see people, and I think it almost sounds pretentious, like, oh, it's not even ours anymore, it's just out there. And, you know, it's kind of like, you know, once we, you know. That works
it's a gift to the world.
It's like that works for like Coldplay or fucking Bono can say that. Like some idiot with yelling at an argument can't really say that. Right. But I think it's kind of like gone beyond anything. It's kind of like it's gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's lost. It's something else. And that's cool.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because the people know.
Yeah.
The people who don't.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm sure there's people walking around with a Shakespeare tattooed down the street that have no idea where they came from.
Right.
You know, like.
I mean, the lyrical content that you've always hit on in every musical outfit you've been involved in, you know, is peppered with depression. I mean, that's not like a all you sing about, but clearly that's a. I mean, it's a topic for many bands to dwell on. But you know, it seems more prevalent. Especially, it's like, you know, the first Most Precious Blood record. It's like they could not.
Suicides. No, pretty much, yeah.
No, totally. And so it's like but I mean, you know, I think the context of how people interact with you is all like, you know, anyone that would meet you would be like, oh, look up, like, nice guy, seems to have his shit together. And like,
right.
But then you'd be like, oh, your lyrics, like, oh my god, like you must be a fragile individual.
Right.
Do you encounter a lot of that, where in regards to like people have a perception of how you are based off of your lyrics, and then like, you know, I'm sure there was like, you know, your low points that you were going through. Was it during those Indecision times, or was it during those like Most Precious Blood times?
Well, I think like with that, like Justin and I like worked on a lot of the lyrics together, so it was like we were both going through things, and I feel like it's funny, like people already have like this preordained like notion of like, I'm gonna see this guy, he's gonna have like fucking upside down cross like tattooed on his face, and he's just gonna be like this lunatic, and it's like, oh, like my mom's like this old Irish Catholic lady. You know what I mean? She would be heartbroken to know half the, like, when I told her our name was Most Precious Blood, she was like, really? Yeah, I'm like, I'm sorry, Mom. It's, you know, I know. It's like named after a record, it has nothing to do with the blood of Jesus, I'm sorry, you know? Like,
right.
And it's kind of like, you know, I think everyone has that side to them.
Of course.
Whether or not, you know,
you decide to have a platform.
Yeah, you know, and it's kind of like, I think, especially, like, Indecision, I think, more than anything, it was kind of like, oh, you're like that anti-religion band. I'm like, that's like 3 songs.
Yeah.
There's a ton more that we've done, you know what I mean? Like,
that's
they
true.
They did a whole, like, you know, record about the government having a cure for cancer
and suppressing it. Right, exactly.
Like, there's so much more.
Didn't that trigger a nerve?
No, nobody, it's like, oh, you know, they have like this brilliant record with a guy with like a sickly man with like his skin made out of dollars.
Right.
Nothing?
Yeah.
We wrote a couple of songs that was like, hey, God might not exist and religion's stupid. And then it's like,
that's
what you're
the brush.
about,
right, that's the brush we're painted with.
You know, and I think, you know, like, at the time of that first Most Precious Blood record, like, Justin was like super sick. He almost died. He had pleurisy.
Right.
So it was like, there's a song on there that he wrote like about being in the hospital. And, like, he was dying and all sort of stuff. And it was like, you know, we were kind of like, being a weird band like we were from New York, it was kind of, we were in a very weird position. We really didn't fit in anywhere.
No.
Because we were kind of like...
You made sense if you came from the West Coast.
Right. That's what we were. I mean, we were like, I want to be Undertow, I want to be Unbroken, we want to be Outspoken. This is it. But it's kind of like, in 1996, people were like, what the fuck
get out of here.
What?
Right.
You know, and like, I can't tell you how many people that were younger that have like heard, like, oh my god, like, we heard Unbroken. Jesus, like, you make it any more obvious that you ripped every god, you know, like...
Right.
But like, to us, it's kind of like, oh, I can tell you what song we ripped this off from.
Yeah,
you
of
know,
course,
but most people are like, I get it now. Like, oh yeah, we totally, like, we made no bones about it. But like, being like a weird, quote unquote, weird band to be like, you know, we're playing in, you know, with 25 to Life and Fury of 5, and like, we have these weird, like, discordant, like, things, and we're talking about stuff. It's kind of like, we never kind of like fit in.
Yeah.
But like, I think with Most Precious Blood, we kind of like, we're like comfortable enough to be like, well, this is what we are.
Right.
We're gonna write about what we want to write about, kind of like. We had such like a built-in, so it was like kind of like unabashed, like, this is it.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, people are going to like us or not going to like us.
Right.
We know enough people from Indecision will probably cross over and like us anyway.
Sure.
We're going to write about, we felt comfortable in kind of saying, like,
right,
I don't
being
need
as
to
raw.
fit into any of, like, these New York hardcore tropes. We're just
Sure.
gonna be like,
as raw as you can. Yeah,
right,
yeah.
and
No,
this is
that's
it. You know
true.
what I mean? It's kind of like, and, like, bands like Unbroken and stuff, like, to be able to, like, be, like, this, like, heavy, crazy band, and, like, you read the lyrics, you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And, like, bands like that, they became more of an influence as we went on.
Yeah.
And we were kind of like, hey, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah,
and,
no, and it's true, and it's something that's so interesting when it's like, it's almost blasphemous to say to people here on the East Coast, but it's like, if I were to be like, two bands that are important to me, like a band like Ignite and a band of like Sick of It All.
Right.
For me, Ignite resonates with me more because I saw them more, like they existed. Right. But then it's like, you could ask 90, 100 hardcore kids out here, and they'd be like, Ignite, no fucking way. Like,
right, but then yeah,
totally.
But I mean, because they were singing about they were in your universe when they were playing those songs.
Right,
it's an obviously a California sound.
Totally.
But like New York, it's kind of like, oh, I know that train that they talk about, or like, I've walked that place, or I've gone to that venue. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like,
it's so interesting.
It's a shared experience,
right?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting when those geographical locations like do constrict you from the fact that like you don't have like just simply peers to play with, and like that's like you're saying, like exactly what Most Precious Blood was going through. It's like I never really thought about it in the context of like, yeah, you guys shouldn't be from New York. Like stylistically, you shouldn't be from New York. You should be from these other places that are know, quote unquote emotionally in touch. Like,
right, I should have like dyed black hair and like be like 31G or whatever 31G. Whatever,
Totally. There's two last things I want to hit on. Was well, first of all, will we ever see the Indecision documentary?
Yeah, it's done.
Okay.
There was a lot involved. We had
it's not easy to put together.
No, and it's tough, and things going back and forth, and we had all these ideas, and it was kind of like, we can't do this, we can't do that. It was kind of like going back and forth, and it was like finally we're like, dude, like Justin Brannon, I love him to death,
of course,
but he's a perfectionist.
Oh yeah.
And he was like, it's not ready yet. I'm like, dude, it's fine.
Right. It may not be ready for you.
Yeah.
I'll bet you everybody else thinks
you've heard these stories before. You don't need that. It's like, and it was kind of like, we can't have this in. We need to change this.
Right.
We need to, we wanted to, like, the one thing that we wanted that, like, the guy wouldn't do was, like, we wanted, more current bands. Like, everyone in it's, like, 40.
Right.
That's cool. But if I'm a 25-year-old, why the hell do I give a shit? You know what I mean? So it was kind of like, so I reached out because, like, I'm still kind of sort of, I'm involved.
Yeah,
so
you're
it's
plugged
like,
in, right?
Hey, Incendiary. Hey, Foundation. Hey, X, Y, and Z, can you do this? And so they filmed their own things, but then when we sent them back, they're like, doesn't look as good.
It's not consistent.
It's like,
right.
Like this is exactly what we wanted, because it's kind of like,
right.
It's awesome.
So do you want to wait a year until the Foundation comes through? Like, right.
It's like, it's awesome. Like, Vinny Stigma's in it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Vinny Stigma's talking about our shitty band. Like, Roger Moret's in it. Like, Lou Kohler is talking about us. It's like, that's awesome. But it's like, I'd love to have, somebody else.
Someone under the age of 40.
Right. And that's, I mean, like,
no slight against that, but
if you would have told me 19-year-old Tom, someone in Sick of It All would even know who you were.
Right.
Never mind being, singing your praises. It's like,
you kind of, you want to, I mean, especially when you're putting in a documentary, the idea is that, you want to paint a holistic picture of, like, where this band sits in the context of everything. That's just not like, oh, once we stopped playing, like, we became irrelevant. Like,
right. Like, it's still kind of somehow continued on. It reverberated somehow.
There's a trickle effect. Right. Okay.
Right. But it's done. It's, we're working on, like, the cover.
Okay.
Trying to figure out a way to kind of make it like a thing to get. Like, whether it be like a 7-inch or something. Like, to kind of like, we
want to
make
attach an added value to it.
Right. And that kind of, it's. I'm on the maybe we could do like a download of it. Or like an MP4, and like the guy that did it wasn't really that psyched on that. Or,
okay.
I'm like, I think it's gonna. Yeah. It's gonna get out there. Like, whether just like records do, it's gonna get
Yeah.
But it's done.
Okay.
And like we kind of wanted to do it in like it's a lot in the context of like 90s hardcore.
Sure.
So it's kind of like, hey, here's what a dialer is. Like, or here's us reading maps, or here's us in like a shitty van with all of our cabinets, like before everyone had a trailer.
Right.
It's kind of like, hey, here's me sitting.
Yeah, here's the 15-passenger van with all the equipment.
Yeah, right. Terrible idea.
Of course.
And I mean, I think after watching it, I've seen it a billion times. It's kind of like, I think it represents the band very well, because it has like that kind of like, there's some hopelessness to it, but overall, like
You got a lot out of it, right?
Yeah, like, and it's like, oh, these tours sucked.
Right.
Oh, we're fighting or this, but it's kind of like, hey,
that's kind of what
none of us, could any of us have ever expected anything. Like,
yeah.
You know, like we got to play CBs.
Right. Why are we here? Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
it was like to go on a tangent. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
I went to go see Beyond and Antidote.
Okay.
Sunday.
Yeah, sure.
You know, a friend of mine from high school hit me up on Facebook, and he was like, "Is Beyond actually playing?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, so I give him the information. So he comes. You know, we're talking. And he's like, we're talking about the band. He's like, "You guys doing anything?" And I was like, "Yeah, you know."
Here and there.
We do stuff here and there. He's like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "What was your last show?" And I was like, "London." And he's like, "England?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "How did that work out?" I'm like, like some dude asked us to play and flew us over there. And he's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "No, I know."
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Yeah, I'd seen you guys play with Judge." He's like, "I hadn't seen you guys in like 18 years." And I'm like, "No, I know." And he's like, "A long way from high school." And I'm like, "No, yeah." And he was like, "Did you guys like ever play CBs?" And I was like, "Dude, we played there like 20 times." And he's like, "Where was I?" I was like, "College."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Man, that makes sense."
Yeah, you're right.
You know, it was kind of like, but then like when you kind of put it out there, like, I have nothing to complain.
Yeah.
Like in terms of that, it's like,
of course
we're never the most popular band.
No.
Never will be, and that's fine. But
right.
Like, we got to do anything.
Yeah. Well, I think that's like such an important point, and I think that's like so many, so like if you ultimately, no matter how large your band or your artistic endeavor gets, that doesn't matter. It's the thing that matters the most is like obviously what you do to like build off that. Right. So you're not like you're not just like some useless individual once you get plugged into society. That you can still contain these ethics that you've learned. And then the second most important thing is the fact that like you did impact some people. That like that legacy will hopefully live on towards like 5-10 years after your band has ended or your artistic thing has already expired from a pop culture standpoint. That it'll still impact those people.
Right, which is pretty mind-blowing, right?
Yeah, you're just like, wow, that's unbelievable. Like, this shouldn't be relevant to you anymore.
Right.
But it is.
Somehow. Right, for like some stupid, band that was never on a big label, never did any, it's kind of like,
yeah,
can't really complain, man. Like, we've been, fortunate, and it's really like we've never had any, like, even listening to like, you hear certain people like, I personally never had that like impetus to kind of be like, I need to. It was kind of like, I'm going to be in a Del Arco band with a bunch of my friends.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, because I'm 17 and I'm dumb, and we're going to get together in this guy's basement and we're going to do some stuff. Right. We had no, it wasn't like
a grand plan
from a child. I can't play an instrument to save my life.
Right.
It was never like, I need to write this, or I need to do this. It was kind of like,
it seemed like a fun thing to do.
Yeah, it was like a bunch of high school friends that was like, hey, don't do anything after school on Thursdays. You want to get together and fuck around? All right.
Right.
And it's kind of like,
I'm the loud one. I'll yell.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It's kind of like, hey, I really like Pantera.
Right.
So, and that's how it all started at a Pantera concert.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like,
yeah.
And then I met him years later, and I got an argument with him, so it was pretty awesome.
That's pretty.
Yeah, I met Phil Anselmo, and I had a school months in New York hardcore history.
And you're like, it's all full circle.
Yeah, I was like, wow. I was like, I wanted to be like, dude, you don't have no idea how you changed my life. And meanwhile, I was like, yeah, Pete Steele didn't write Victim in Pain. He's like, yeah, he did. I'm like, no.
No.
I was like, that's cool. He wrote the sketches stuff on Cause for Alarm. He's like, I know the man. He wrote Victim in Pain. I'm like, Vinny Stigma would beg to differ because he didn't write that.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm arguing with fucking Phil Anselmo. Like,
right.
What's wrong with you asshole? Shut up. Like,
you're in your own head. It's like, oh man, this is perfect. Well, I really appreciate you hanging out, dude.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I hope I didn't ramble too much.
So there is the discussion with Tom. I actually really enjoyed the sort of ambiance that was created because we were right underneath, I can't remember what bridge. But it's a bridge that's on the Lower East Side of New York. Brooklyn Bridge? I think that's what they call it. I apologize. All you New Yorkers are just yelling at me right now, being like, you are a stupid Californian. And yes, I am. We were almost right underneath that bridge, and it was just a very nice evening. And so, yeah, thank you to Tom, and thank you to Tom for putting up with my incompetence on losing your interview, but then refinding it and being able to put it up now. So the producer, as always, is Tom Richfield, and he probably had his work cut out for him in this episode, so my eternal thanks and gratitude towards him. Visit the show's website, 100 Words Podcast. Visit the email address. You can visit it, or you can email the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. And until next week, remember, it's the split 7-inch episode with Tom Mullen from Washed Up Emo. Yahoo! Be safe, everybody.
This episode is brought to you by Toyota. Toyota is a leader when it comes to electrified vehicles. Today, battery EVs make up less than 10% of new vehicles sold because of higher cost and concerns about range and charging. Enter Beyond Zero, Toyota's vision for a carbon-neutral future. With an electrified, diversified lineup of hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and battery EVs, Toyota empowers you to choose how to reduce your own carbon footprint. Learn more and get details at toyota.com/beyond zero. Toyota, let's go places.
Have you heard about Vyvgart? F-Gart Tegamod Alpha F-Cab? Ask your neurologist if Vyvgart could be right for you. And learn more at vyvgart.com/learn. That's VYVGART.com/learn. Brought to you by argenx.
Before you pop champagne and wave goodbye to 2023, take advantage of Cheap Caribbean's end-of-year vacay sale. Cheap Caribbean has awesome vacation packages to your favorite beaches in Mexico and the Caribbean. And for a limited time, you can take an extra $200 off site-wide travel deals. Plus, you can vacay now and pay later with 0% APR. Find a beach vacay in your budget at cheapcaribbean.com. Cheers, beaches! Terms apply.